Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. I'm joined today by long-term business partner Andy Hallett from Rexband and more importantly to me, RecWired. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Looking forward to end of the year and then looking actually forward to 2025 as well. I think there's going to be lots of good things happening.
Tell you what I'm looking forward to. That first pint of Guinness when I land in Dublin Airport on Friday evening. And do you know what else I'm looking forward to?
Go on.
That first pint of Guinness when I get up on Saturday morning and my two buddies from recruitment from my Robert Walter days are going to meet me in the Arlington Hotel for our annual Christmas jolly. And speaking of Christmas parties, here's what you shouldn't do.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where we're going to splice this in, but this was circulating last week around the WhatsApp groups, and everyone was just like, wow.
At the Christmas party, okay? I'm not a prude. I take drugs myself. I just don't do it at work events, okay? Because that's when things get really out of hand, okay? If you take drugs at the Christmas party, you'll be fine. Okay, it's a really strong rule. If you want to cheat on your partner, I'd recommend 2024 has been a stark reminder that it's probably not wise to cheat on your partner with someone at work. If you're going to cheat on your partner, if you have to do it, just don't do it with someone at work. It really becomes very, very problematic, as we've seen. If you're single, we've got lots of people that have met their partner at Sharp.
So it's an interesting one. Now it's in the public domain. I think we can have a talk. I actually feel really sorry for the guy being completely stitched up like that. I think you have a meeting. I think there's got to be some degree of, you're in an organization, there's got to be some sort of trust there. I think his theme was good, be good to each other, don't cause problems on the thing. I think,
So Jake, just for reference, this is all over LinkedIn and Shortlist today, and it's gone viral. So Shortlist is the leading publication in Australia, New Zealand, and there's a lady from Absco, I can't remember her name, but Absco Australia, she's calling out Shortlist today, and then there's other founders jumping in, and everybody's having a party on this. They're having their own LinkedIn party, and look, Sharp and Carter are a big brand. They are a premium brand as well. It's like it's almost as bad as the bloody Jaguar ad recently. So they employ 200 people in Australia. So what they're like is like a boutique Michael Page, and they're excellent, like brilliant people, brilliant company. Like anytime I've worked with them, they come out on top of people's choices, and they always just go for the best of the best, right? So it's a premium brand. They've built it, and it's this. He gave a speech for for his 200 staff, not just the people in present, but over Zoom, knowing it was recorded, and told people that he takes drugs, but not at Christmas parties, that they shouldn't cheat on their missus, which is good, or if they are, don't do it at the work party, and it it didn't come across as tongue in cheek. That's the problem. It wasn't delivered like that. It was
No, it was just good sage advice, just delivered in a very matter-of-fact way. And yeah, but the central theme was right. Maybe the execution of it was slightly debatable, and I felt it just seemed a little bit awkward. But you could just actually, what was interesting though was watching the reaction of the people not in the room, but the people on the Zoom call. It was just like oh shit, he said it. It's like
no.
just wow. And that's the difficulty around some of these sort of Zoom community, Teams communications, right? And it's like any meeting. What's being said outside of the room is super important on this. And what, how does that play? We used to talk about the Daily Mail test, right? So we do something at work or something happens and your mum reads it in the Daily Mail. How's she going to feel? Or someone that you don't know reads it in the Daily Mail. So yeah, just reading that,
This did make the Daily Mail, by the way.
It did. It did.
It made it today.
Yeah. So actually, but yeah, take the nuance out of it, take the background. Yeah, it's been, I don't know. I think I've been at a fair few speeches that haven't been far off that mark. Team meetings where people have talked about stuff like that. So it's
okay,
like,
but Andy,
it's in the public domain.
Also, Andy, like you've been in recruitment for a long time, and pre-digital age, and when you think of it, right, when I started, even in the late noughties, like in 2000, but when I was there in Australia, it was wild. Like if any of that shit had been recorded, like forget about it. Like it is like and I knew 10 years before in the UK market, like it like but no, like everything's recorded. And
I joke with my university mates. We had a catch up with them last week, and we were like, literally, if there was Facebook or Instagram or Twitter around when we were at university, we'd have been cancelled before we started. It literally would have been, and I think, as leaders, you've actually got to think and do like anything you do, could be very much in the public domain and can be front page. And you take years to build up a brand, and that sort of thing can really damage it in, damage it in seconds. I like the fact the guys came out and owned it, though. It's not hiding behind, it's not mistake, it's not blaming anything. Actually, from the quotes I've seen, he's like, "Oh, this is just, just what it is."
really, good on him. Yeah, look, Michael Page got through their infamous ski trip where lots of madness happened, and that made the papers. There's been loads of other. Actually, it always seems to be Australia that gets the viral things that happen. But anyway,
Yeah, but maybe because recruitment are the mad people out in Australia, whereas recruitment sort of flies under the radar and under the sort of under the lights of insurance companies in the UK as well. So there's always a wilder one here.
Yeah. All right. So 2024, challenging year, right? I'd say more challenging for the UK than anywhere really, right? It feels like it's been a heavy year.
The UK's had challenging times. The UK, for whatever year, is a tough market. It's more commoditized. It's more mature. There's, you've got that much more challenge in the UK. I feel that doesn't mean to say going to Europe, going to the States is easy, but definitely if you can make it in the UK, as you probably know, going internationally is you've earned your stripes here. You can go internationally, and the opportunities are probably bigger and better. But I think for the UK, the UK has been very good at right sizing itself. I mean, we've seen firms that we know drop from 50 to 10. We've seen firms we know drop from 200 to 100. And this business
we've seen plenty go out of business and pop up.
Oh yeah,
we've seen the next week.
Fair few go to naught, and and then, but you've even seen some let's just call them restructuring, some big restructurings as well. Yeah. You've seen some M&A activity, which has been people buying distressed assets, but you're starting to see genuinely starting to see, I think, some good deals come through. So I think if you look at the sentiment for the last quarter, it's a lot more positive. We're very lucky that we've got a very broad spectrum of members. We've got our founder group, which is 0 to 5, well, 1 to 5. You've got 5 to 50, which is our growth group, and our enterprise group of 50 plus. And there's been a few successes in it. I think what I found really interesting though is when I've been meeting founders of some of the bigger firms, they're just like, yeah, and if we're being honest, we've been like this. There's been a few that have grown, but most have either stayed still or slightly cut back. But yeah, if you're in business at the end of 2024, you've done okay compared to a fair few in your peer group.
Yeah, it's a good time for self-reflection when you have these types of years. Like personally, I had to kind of go, well, what can I do to like affect the needle, not just like straight away, but over a long period of time. So I moved Charlotte into doing the Rec Direct stuff, and I'm just going to double down on the media and on the community stuff. So that means more time in my diary helping scaling recruitment firms, and then hopefully all that goodwill comes back on the next boom. And I think you gave me some good advice one time.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
One time.
It was
Did you
around
take it?
COVID, and you said you have to plan like you're going to be here tomorrow. And I think that's really sage advice for any recruitment firm going through it right now, because you could be like, I'm going to sack everybody, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Like, you have to cut back for sure, but what can you hold on to? What are you doing that, like, is what you're doing going to go away forever? Or will it come back? And if you're still in it and you're still doing the right things, will you be in a better position to beat the competition on the other side?
Yeah, I think it's about recruitment owners are very much running herds. You see it quite a bit, and I think as well there's a real people tend to move too late. And what I mean by that, the party was finishing mid 22. If you looked at the job data in a lot of firms, especially on perm, it was starting to soften. But people were saying, oh, it's just the summer, it's just this, it's just that, and we're still hiring because we need talent. And even when it's like, okay, we're just going to pause and we're not going to let anyone go because they're going to be. So I think as recruitment owners, you need to trust your data. You need to somehow have that focus of forget what everyone else is doing. And it's difficult if everyone else is doing it, having it away, hiring loads of people. You're like, why am I different? But having the sort of courage of your own convictions is really, really important. But the other thing is, I think this is an amazing opportunity for firms to build back. And, it's, as a recruitment owner, it may well be your first, second, third, or fourth recession. Okay. And these things happen. So the other thing to do is plan for it. So we're going to grow back, but when are we going to stop growing, or when are we going to pause growing? So, because this will happen again, as sure as night follows day. The market will come back. And if you're in business, as we were saying, depending on which made up stat you believe, there is somewhere between 20 and 30% less recruiters in the UK industry right now. I'm damn sure there's not 20 or 30% less specialist STEM jobs, the sort of people, people in our groups. So therefore you should be above par and you should be able to affect change. The trouble is the 20 or 30 have gone are probably the people who couldn't, were hired in 21, 22, couldn't hack it. So you're probably back to what I would see as a normal market. Pre-COVID wasn't great, wasn't terrible, but this is just recruitment.
You've had some political outbursts recently on LinkedIn. Um, you don't agree with the word outbursts there, but you've become a bit of a commentator on it.
Look, I just feel that a new government is elected, a new mandate, and you'll possibly see the difference in the UK and the US around how industry feels now. Whether or not you're Conservative, whether or not you're Labour, whether or not you're Democrat, whether or not you're Republican, as business people, I genuinely feel that it's a it's a decision they've taken. They've decision to, so the UK government have decided to increase the tax on jobs. End of. Therefore, if we are looking to encourage and grow the economy, we've got to get people back into work. We've got to get people contributing. Got to get people, bringing in tax revenues. So it feels very counterintuitive. Now, maybe if you take that 40 billion and you pour it into the public sector, then that's great, because the public sector are amazing at spending money, and so there's some real opportunities for recruitment firms to make it, or any firms to supply into the public sector. I feel like the timing was off. Maybe you're 2 years down the road. Maybe the economy's on fire. Maybe that's a nice way of sort of trimming things. But it feels like and it's a lever pulled at the wrong time. And I feel that I consider myself as a centrist politically, and I've voted Conservative before, I've voted Labour before, and I'll vote based on how I see the policies, how I see and it just feels like the wrong tactic at the wrong policy at the wrong time.
Yeah, I wonder in a global economy how it will really affect things. Like I think America is going to drive everything. Trump coming back in is the biggest relief going for me. Can I make a hot take here? You've heard it first. I think we're going to have an oil and gas energy boom and everything that associates with it in America and Canada. I went to Canada in 2015. I could have the wrong pipeline here, but I think it was the Gladstone, or anyway, I could be corrected here. But it was the big pipeline going from Canada to America, supplying all the oil and gas. And Trump's come in, and well, in that time we had the crash, the 2015 oil crash. Oil and gas never really recovered. Renewable kind of is going a little bit. Trump's come in. He reckons wind is a waste of time. Um, he hasn't tied his mast to nuclear, although he's kind of exploring it, but he is a big oil and gas proponent. So I suspect we're going to see that boom again happen. And you're going to have places like Houston and Calgary and uh, and and Denver and all those places where UK firms were massive. Like Andy, when I was in Australia and they had the oil and gas boom and mining at the same time, people were just making money for fun. And Calgary, if you look at, I remember at the time I interviewed at Robert Half in Calgary, and they were the number one Robert Half office in the world. And it was all down to that boom. So I think we could be in for it again now. So
Yeah, I mean, I was at a firm in 2015, and we based our whole strategy around oil and gas, and that was really great when it was $100+ a barrel,
yeah.
and you're basically extracting through a needle in Angola. It costs in then, but when the oil price goes down, I think actually even the spot rate hit negative once because of all the forwards. So yeah, it didn't work out so well after that. But
Well, I had just started a brand new job in Calgary that day.
yeah,
And
fantastic.
like the whole thing stopped. It was my second job in recruitment. The whole thing stopped. It was like, and it was like the streets were paved with gold, and then it just stopped. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, and that's where you were sort of just tacked to the oil price, because certain ventures that were profitable and even super profitable, just changed. So there is something to be said for, but also as well, if you're an oil and gas recruiter, okay, how many of the guys that hung in and stayed there did really well? So rather than just just
Mm.
following the vogue, just stayed there,
Most
just
of them went into high-end construction. Most of those firms pivoted to construction in and around different renewable energy or different energy sources. You could see that, like, because I suppose it goes in terms of the deal. Do you remember back then the drillers and geos and all of that were like they were the core thing in mining and oil and gas, and then it goes into the build phase, and then it goes into the deconstruction phase. So I would be interested now what's going to be the next boom along that cycle. If you're saying yes, we're going with this pipeline, that infrastructure spend is going to be massive. If if that happens in conjunction with Trump throwing a ton of money at infrastructure spend across the US, there's going to be a construction boom as well. Um, but he's also threatening to cut government. So I can't remember what it is, but the All In podcast, we're quoting some stats saying that like the amount of headcount employed in government has just gone up and up and up through the Democrats' time there. So he's created Doge with Department of Efficiency with
Government efficiency, yeah,
yeah.
and created the whole acronym just to support Dogecoin. Brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, so him and that, so Musk is going to come in uh, and go through government spending with a samurai sword. Where will that money? I know it's going to go to wipe off the national debt, but will they then look at putting that into more infrastructure spend? Could there be more construction orientated jobs out there? Um, I feel like we're kind of moving back into more of a physical world when it comes to that. Like AI has shrunk down the amount of tech staff you need to do something. So is IT recruitment going to continue to be the big thing?
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting around Musk. I mean, I think what is it? He's wiped 75% of the value of Twitter, a $45 billion buy or something like that. I would argue that's quite cheap to win an election.
Yeah.
So if you could say to the Republicans, everyone who funds the Republican Party, okay, it's going to cost you 30 billion to win an election, they'd have bitten your hand off. So yeah, and he's still got effectively, an asset which he can call upon to, so back to your point around IT recruitment. IT recruitment is certainly more mainstream. As I say, I've been doing this 25 years, and IT used to be, it wasn't it was the nice to have. It was a little bit of sugar on top of the cake. But now it's an essential part of most organizations, and it's core in the same way that finance is core, HR is core, an IT department is core. So I think you've seen a lot of commoditization, a lot of people going, but I think the way technology is going, I think you're going to have a lot more parts of the organization that's going to be around adoption. You don't need to be quite as technical these days to be full on coding. If you look at some of the no code stuff, if you look at
Well, if you look at what we built with RecWire Plus, Andy, and we're able to get that up and running through DOM, um, we couldn't have done it 3 years previous.
yeah,
Like the technology just wasn't, it wouldn't have existed. So I would say there'd be lots of lean startups like us will who would have went and got VC money or would have went and got like loads of money and hired people and taken a massive risk. And now you can get an NPC together pretty easy in comparison. So that whole world of how much money you need and how much people you need to hire to get to that point has shrunk. But does that allow us then to do much more things and maybe people are going to start getting hired into different functions and it's
yeah. I think the interesting thing is, I look at my kids and wonder what they're going to do. I just want them off the payroll basically. But so my boy's going to be going to university in 2026. My girl 2-3 years after that, and it's and the other one a few years after that. So it's like, right, okay, so what are they actually going to do, and what are the jobs that are going to be available to them to do? And I think the thing of what AI does for me is it really shortens things and enables people to do things quicker. It does enable you to automate things, but I think then it's going to be the challenge will be people who can think how to use AI in the most sophisticated way. That will be it's the people who get the most out of it will still be the ones, in the same way that people got the most out of the internet, in the same way that people got the most out of the telephone when it first came in as a cell. So it will be those people that get the most out of it that I feel will win the game.
yeah, let's see. I'm a bit more nihilistic about it. I think that's a short-term play. I think that's the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The bit then is what jobs disappear and what maintain. Like I look at my boys are younger than your kids, and like I have them doing sports 7 days a week. Um, like I, I think like I will get them to university for sure because like the rock here is too small and like just they'll be weirdos if they don't manage to get away for a few years. So really important for them to get out there and get a taste of the big bad world and stuff. But I I wonder would if they have practical skills, would some form of a trade be more suitable and more future proofed to, well, then they could set up their own business in that. And like you're always going to need somebody to do like those type of jobs, and I think they're going to be more and more valuable. um it's a minefield, right?
Yeah, I looked at the job that would be most disrupted under AI, and it's management consultant. So yeah, I reckon hopefully I've got 3 years left before that's completely gone. But as you say, tradespeople, sports person is the one. It was a Telegraph report. Sports person was the least likely to be disrupted.
Yeah,
I think then general trades like electricians, plumbers, people
yeah,
like that. People. Yeah, the intelligence piece, is very easy when it's a user interface. Once you start having robotics and stuff, it becomes more and more difficult, I'd imagine. But it'll get there, as you say.
yeah.
If you see some of the stuff that virtual reality can do as well, it's not far off.
Yeah, I reckon I'm gonna have to get that Irish bar in Tarifa yet. That has to be the next bullshit business venture that doesn't make any money like this jiu-jitsu club.
Yeah. The other thing I did say to you around COVID was you don't want to be here in a year with a recruitment business. I said to you, if you
Yeah,
hear with just a rec to rec business, you failed. And to be fair, you set up the consulting business, we set up Required,
yeah.
and yeah, I think the challenge for me is right. Okay, so how have so we've got effectively two cohorts in our required groups. We've got founders who are where they are now. They've either there by choice, they've decided it's just me, I don't want to grow, and that's fine, or recently founded and I'm going to grow. So the challenge for them is how do they grow efficiently? And they've got no debt, they've got no technical debt, they've got no historical debt, they've not got big offices, they've got a massive LinkedIn account. So how do they scale efficiently? How would they do it on a blank sheet of paper, which a lot of firm would kill for? And then we've got our other groups, the groups that have probably cut back a bit in the last year or two. How are they going to grow back? And are they going to grow back differently? So are they just going to do what they did before? So, get more jobs on, hire more people to get more jobs on. It's very sort of linear. So what's going to be interesting is what people are going to do different this time. So 2025, how are people going to do this differently? Who are going to be the ones that really, really succeed?
All right. So one of those things I think will be different is when the times were good last time, um, people spend on operational back office from a people function was quite high, us included, and now because AI and getting things done, like things are just easier to get. I think that technology and marketing spend that would have been on people in the past will be on solutions and technology.
Yeah, I think it's where you spend on the people as well. Yeah, a lot again since the budget, but it would been a theme anyway throughout this year. I must have dealt with 10 firms that have moved people to South Africa, especially Cape Town, where you can get someone for approximately half, and they'll be better, and they'll value their job, and they'll bring something to the organization. And
Yeah, look, I mean, that's only as good as the leadership, I think. Like,
you do need different skills to run it. I agree,
yeah,
and it is up to the leadership. I mean, if you can't manage remote staff, then and you've got to literally rely on the fact that
I think,
to do something, they've got to be sat there. Yeah, it's a challenge.
yeah, so for me, that there works on key accounts. It works when times are good. It maybe works on,
No, but I think predominantly it works in operations. I mean, first,
oh, sorry, with operations, 100%. Yeah.
first
But
and foremost, operations. Once you've got that nailed, once you're comfortable with that, then you can go into maybe customer service. Some of those
yeah.
maybe resourcing. I've yet to be convinced that BD works. I've yet to be convinced that I think those sort of core elements of what I call being a 360 recruiter but it will happen. And
no, it'll work if the company's established enough. So where I always see the key problem with any company that's growing is that the person who founds it hasn't had enough building management experience. And because of that, they're not able to hire rookies, they're not able to train, they're not able to manage. And then they spend money on people and then they wonder why it didn't work. And they fall into being a solopreneur. And this is this vicious cycle. And whereas anybody who, like, actually Dan Mills, I had him on the podcast yesterday, he said, I don't really want to grow a big company, and I kind of peeled back the onion a little bit on the interview. And then, like, heard about his experience at Gravitas and what the numbers that he did and his team did and the levels that they got to and all the rest. And I was like, well, I think I wouldn't bet against you getting to 20 pretty quick. And even if you wanted to or not, I say, like, all those habits are so innate and you're quite charismatic. I've no doubt that he'll go on and do that. But then I speak to a founder who is a top biller at some company, and that company only has 5 people. And he's like, I'm gonna take over the world. I'm like, fucking betting against this person 1000%. They'll set up a lifestyle business. They might have a real estate portfolio, but they're not going to scale a recruitment business 9 times out of 10.
Well, what's interesting is that I've very much seen the demographic change about who sets up. So when I was at S3, it tended to be people who were directors, had been billing managers. You look at the people who made, the big exits. People like Sean Wadsworth was running a big business at Real. Adam Buck was running a big business at Augtel. James Gorfin, who's just recently done a deal for GTV, big business. So all of these people had lots of experience, and you're right, had been off the tools. They'd been there. They'd sort of been in the machine. They'd seen it. So yeah, typically, I look at where people have grown up. Okay, so if they've been to a Walters, a Page, a Hayes, chances are they've been trained really well. They've been used to a big environment and they think big. If they've not, and also as well, they value the training. They value discipline. They value training. They accept it's a bit of a machine and a bit of a formula, and obviously do their sort of uniqueness, but value the fact that if we do this well, it's going to work. So I think. But we have seen founders that haven't come from those environments done well. I don't think I just think
9 times out of 10.
But it makes it easier. It's but also the belief thing. All right. Yeah. So if you've been around this and you've like, well, actually, I've seen those guys, go. I've seen them build big business. No, it's possible. They're good. They're still human. They were still, they were, and it's like, wow, it makes it more believable.
So Andy, predictions now, 2025. So we're building back better. And core bits on that is, what would you say if you were to outline some of those things?
The core bit is like most recruitment companies don't have a plan. They'll say they have a plan and it'll be for like 27 or 2030 and stuff like that. And it'll be a whole bunch of numbers that they have no control over. I reckon you should, if you've not built a budget for the year, and I know it sounds, you should be building a budget for the year. So, and we basically see how you're tracking against that. And if you're tracking above, go harder. If you're not tracking, just work out where you need to be. And I think, but have a plan and have a target and really go for it. I think people sometimes as well let the market dictate how they're doing. A real example, right? So someone could start, the market's terrible, it's down. Like you've got 5 people, right? What's the addressable market for data centers in the world? Okay, fine. If you had 1% of that market, would you still have, yeah, we'd be full. All right, fine. We'll go and get full on that 1%, which you can develop a niche and then look at where you are. So I think it's about controlling the controllables. The best people look at what's in their gift to do. Who are the people you've got? Will they become profitable? Use some basic numbers. hire, if you're going to hire someone on 40K, you better believe they can do 4x that. Okay, so 160K. Budget for them to do 120, which is, let's be honest, the UK average, and start performance managing them if they don't manage 80. It's as simple as that, or get rid, pretty much. So just take some simple maths on it, and take the emotion out of it is the biggest thing as well. I think the biggest thing I've seen is recruitment leaders believe in people who aren't going to make it. And also as well, I think because they're sometimes difficult to manage, they haven't believed in people who could generally make it, but just a little bit difficult.
So predictions for the macro environment. Is Trump going to come in and solve a few of these international conflicts, put some tariffs on people to bring a bit more business to the US? The US going to boom? Is everything going to roll downhill from there? Are we all going to live happily ever after? Tell me some good news, Andy.
I think you're going to see two. You're almost going to see a sort of Milton Friedman versus John Maynard Keynes type of economics. So the states are going to go low tax, and you'll see how that all works. And I think you'll see some high growth. I think you'll see lots of government spending, and I think in the UK, I think you'll see an uptick. There'll be more money swimming around. Inflation's coming down. The feel-good factor will come back next year, I'm fairly sure. So I think in different ways, it's going to be both great for both countries. I think what Trump does is Trump brings chaos, and actually as well, once you sort of get into the sort of what he's actually going to do, and which one of the 17 policies he's going to focus on, I think you'll get some clarity on that. But I think, my feeling is that there's a lot of economic activity backed up. More than half the world has voted this year and gone on election. So there's been a lot of waiting to what to see. And I think what you'll see in 2025, the brakes will come off, everyone will follow the herd, and we'll be back to doing what we did before.
Let's go. All right. Christmas special. Here we go. Let's try and do a live podcast next year, Christmas special in South Africa. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all right. So highly recommended.
All right, deadly. Good on ya. Talk soon.